I'd like to introduce 4 people with a lot of gray hair, and we're going to talk about what we got wrong with IoT and what's going right today, hopefully. Go back 10 years ago, we all remember the crazy numbers. You had 70 billion connections forecasted by Morgan Stanley, 50 by Ericsson, trillions of market value. It's going to be easy. We're all going to make a ton of money. But what did we get right back then, and then what did we screw up? And I'm going to start with Alistair.
Oh, God. Is this on?
Yeah.
Yeah?
And we only have 25 minutes, so keep it short.
I'll say most things, actually. I mean, I'd say the first thing that we really screwed up was calling the IoT a separate thing. Deciding that it was somehow a whole new field of technology that we could charge customers more money for, that they were somehow going to pay from the same pool of money that they were already spending on software licenses from Microsoft and future cloud services. I think that separation and the mindset that came along with that made it very difficult in the early days to build things that were interoperable with one another, technologies that actually work together. And I think from an enterprise customer's perspective, that led to what's been, I think, a 10 or 15-year delay in people adopting IoT solutions because, frankly, it was too damn complex. The other thing I think you've already mentioned was the numbers.
Yep.
Throwing out billions and billions and trillions of devices in the early days attracted lots of VC money into the space, made everybody excited, but didn't bring with it a realization of the practical difficulties involved in building hardware-based solutions and network-based businesses. So everyone started out with this idea that somehow everything was going to be instant, it was all going to happen, it was all going to be this whole new area of value. And like I said, I think that mindset, that created a number of issues that still exist today.
Yep.
They're getting better, but they still exist.
Okay. Some thoughts? Alan?
Well, just that IoT 10 years ago was like computers when we were much younger, where you go to the grocery store and get that inch-thick magazine and pick your components, and then you wondered why you didn't get volume until things were sort of done for you at a certain level. And that's really what we're just now escaping, really, with the IoT business.
Yeah. Jaap, any thoughts on this?
Yeah, I think this is way too negative. We didn't screw up anything.
Okay.
I mean, specifically the 3 of us, we did everything we could to make it happen, and some of you were part of it. So no. But if I summarize it, I think we have to take IoT out of the hand of the engineers. Because if we leave it at that level, then it's never going to be what it promises to be. So let's make business out of it. And come on, Wink and Johan are making money out of it. So it's not all bad.
Yeah.
So.
No, I think there was a lot of good things at the beginning. I think we just got a little bit crazy with the numbers. And I'll give you the perfect example. I used to be at IDC back then. Our first forecast for IoT came out at 7.1 trillion. 6 months later, we revised it down to 1.7, and I thought we were going to get absolutely slaughtered. Not a single customer caught it. We just knocked out 75% of the market, and then no one even caught it. I'm like, is anybody actually looking at this, or are we just all running and going, yay, this is great? So, but back then, everyone was just throwing money at IoT, and I think it was quite interesting because all the vendors were creating these demo centers to show off their IoT solutions. We came up with new buzzwords because Internet of Things wasn't enough. We had to have the Internet of Everything, whatever the hell that was supposed to be. But how has that investment changed? Like, I mean, Alan, you were looking at investments all through this period. You do a lot now. How has the investment cycles changed for people and what they look at with IoT?
Well, you know, investing, and again, I'm not a banker. I can just play one at cocktail parties for most of the night. But we have bankers here if someone wants to have a drink with a real one. But you know, the way I think about it is, whether it's VC or more so than private equity or corporate investing, it goes through fashion. It's a fashionable phase. And just like today, if you don't have AI in your whatever you're doing, you're not getting money. It's just that simple. And back then, this was the next big thing, whether it was 1 trillion or 10 trillion or whatever. I actually had someone plot all the estimates once. It looked like a splatter, like a psychological test. They were so scattered over time and volume. I think Cisco actually had like 150 billion at one point. But I think I think people understood the inspiration and the vision. But I think with all new technologies, we often underestimate how much of a heavy lift it is in the early days. You know, just because there's so much putting every little thing together. Hardware, software, services. And then, hey, you better maintain this thing when you get it out there. Nobody thinks about that. So you get the first 1,000 out, and it's like, oh, what do I do now?
I think what we talked about back then, it was all about we can use these sensors now to start capturing more data, and we're going to turn that data into intelligence. Have we actually done that? Yep, I'm going to go to you on this one. Have we been able to get over this hurdle now and finally use this data that we're capturing and help us make business decisions? And you're shaking your head no, which worries me.
I think you're hitting the nail on the head. We have not, right? We have silos that basically bring data, and the data is where we've been talking about big data and how to monetize it for a long time now, but nobody does it yet. So, as I said before, we are somewhat in the iPod phase. Now let's wait for the streaming, and then bring it truly that everybody has access to everything. That needs a few things to be resolved in terms of access to the data, security, privacy, all that stuff. I would love that when I come home, my Tesla connects to my electric meter and to my solar system, but it doesn't. And I'm a techie, so I know how to do things, but it doesn't. So I buy expensive electricity because the IoT data systems are not interconnected.
You gave a great example in your presentation earlier where you talked about the iPod evolution. So when the MP3 first came out, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think you said it was 10 years before we even had the iPod. So do you think we're at that 10-year cycle now with IoT, or is it going to go on longer?
That's how it feels.
Yeah.
That's how it feels exactly being here, because you can go out here and build your own IoT solution. You pick a sensor, you pick a platform, you pick whatever, all the parties are here. So now it's a question of how do we bring that all together? And I think the value of it comes out of the data. Selling hardware is a 20 to 30% margin. A network, Ellen would know better. A chip, Alistair would know. But at the end of the day, the data is what you can monetize.
Well, yeah, and to that point, you could always get someone to build 10 or 100 units for you. To get someone to build thousands or tens of thousands of units at scale, at quality, at industrial requirements, there's actually still very few people who can do that. It's a different game when you talk about whatever big number you want to talk about.
Any thoughts on this?
Yeah, I mean, I think your question was partly about investment and the role of investment. I think in the early days, and still to a degree now, we focused a lot on what the technology made possible, and much less on the business case behind that technology. I mean, if you look at the areas in which LP-WAN in particular has been widely adopted, it's areas like metering, where there is a very clear, very simple business case. For a lot of IoT solutions, there's a business case there, but it's not well articulated. I think the other aspect is that we haven't really learned from some of the lessons of the past. When you look at enterprise software in particular, enterprise software, ERP systems used to be a thing that large blue chip companies would pay a consulting business to build for them from scratch. And they would build this massive, complicated code base and then pay the folks that actually understood how it worked, whatever they needed to keep them on board. And it was only when those solutions became standardized, customizable, off-the-shelf solutions, COTS, that things like ERP really started to expand. And I think if we'd focused more on those two aspects, how do we drive wide-scale adoption? Your point is similar to that. How are enterprises actually going to adopt this at scale, and how are we going to penetrate beyond the few that want to spend money on building a custom solution? And are we articulating a clear business case that they can wrap their head around? Because the conversations in the early days that I used to have were always with the kind of CTO side of the house, the technology side of the house in big customers. I'd say about 5 or 6 years ago, the conversation shifted to more the CFO, COO, CEO level conversation. And we didn't turn up with a clear business case.
Would you agree? Let's get controversial. I know Jaap loves this stuff too. That LoRa did much better than Sigfox, primarily because of the business model and not because of technology. Would you agree on that statement?
Business model and ecosystem.
Yeah.
I mean, I know I've used this. The technologies that win have 3 common characteristics. They are fit for purpose, good enough at the job, they're easy to use, and they have lots of friends. Yep. And if you look at LoRa, I would say the main driver of LoRa's success has been the ecosystem that we were able to create around it. And Semtech played a part in that, but frankly, a small part. It was organizations like TTN from the very early days. TTN has always been the default developer ecosystem for LoRa. It was separating the protocol and helping to create the LoRa Alliance to drive that. It was the ecosystem around the technology that made it win. The principle behind Sigfox of building a contiguous network same network wherever you go should have worked a lot better than it did because it created a backbone for logistics solutions. Mm-hmm. The business model around Sigfox, the punitive terms that they landed on operators, it didn't help. But it was the lack of ecosystem that I think really, that they didn't succeed in building and Nora did.
My thoughts are more business model than ecosystem because we had a pretty big one. Jaap, what do you think?
I'd like to think ecosystem because me and my friend built that LoRa Alliance, and as I said before, none of the operators that were on board, no, somebody corrected me. Some of the operators that were on board in 2014 at the end are no longer there, so they found better way to use their networks and money to make more out of it. So I tend to believe ecosystem. But before we even were allowed to launch that, because Semtech didn't want that in the first place, we had to fight internally to launch it. Then we launched it. We ran, in cycles with a new chairman and a new business model and new committees. And today Alper has taken it on, and I think doing a brilliant job of managing this. So the real question for me is not about looking back on what happened, because somebody was brave enough to make it happen. But what can LoRa do? What can we do for LoRa to make it even bigger? Because to me, LoRa sits here, and you can look at my slides from last year. Wi-Fi and BLE are here. How do we bring LoRa to the Wi-Fi BLE level? That's what Semtech has to worry about, if they want to worry about it. Because then there is real volume. Today, a couple of 100 million chips is nice, but a couple of billion is better.
Yeah.
The ecosystem still has a lot to undergo. So to summarize this, we're at a stage after 10 years, we're at the first generation of the iPod. Now think about this, that one didn't even have the fancy orange buttons, so we've still got a lot of improvement in the iPod years, so there's a lot of things that can change going forward. But the next thing I want to talk about is IoT, the marketing organizations took it over, they threw out the buzzword, it went really quiet for a while. Is the term still relevant today, or is this just becoming more business as usual? And I'll go back to Jaap on this one and start with that.
Yeah, well, the best question is always to your family. If you have to explain what business you're in, you say IoT, they have no clue. And my son tells me, who's a little bit techie, so you might as well say I'm in the internet business, which is everything again. So it's way too wide. Yeah. And I think it was Cisco who nailed Internet of Everything, IoE.
I think it was.
Something like that. So that kind of makes sense.
They have a big marketing department.
And I believe, again, we need to merge all that stuff because my CGM or my watch or even my camera can tell me how I need to behave, and then that same data can be used to basically feed me better, all that stuff, and then drive the agricultural chain so they don't produce more tomatoes than I can eat and do the cucumber that I like. Also, all that stuff has to come together. So I'm of the opinion that, yes, we have a nice 10 years ahead of us, we just need to focus on the right problems.
Okay. You guys any thoughts on this one?
We're actually, first of all, there is no such thing as IoT. There's 10,000 different vertical use cases. Yeah. Okay? And so investors don't invest really in IoT, they invest in the specific use case in business. Number two, especially with AI, I would suggest to everyone, IoT should just be called the data facilitation business. Okay? Because again, AI is the most, hungriest consumer of data that the world has ever seen. IoT is a key enabler of that data that's going to actually advance AI. It's a perfect combination. So I would just think of it as data enablement.
Yeah. Is the ecosystem too fragmented still? Because we have this data, but they're not working and getting that data into the hands of the people who are creating the AI solutions that sit on top of it. So are we still too fragmented?
It's the IT-OT problem too.
Yeah. So we talk tech, we can't talk about business solutions.
Yeah, I mean, I've yet to meet a customer who understood what the IoT meant. You know, if you start out talking about IoT, it's like, okay, same as you said. If you have to explain it to your family, then people understand business cases, and they understand business cases that are relevant to them. I think the complexity in the ecosystem is that you have folks who are building those solutions. People are building predictive maintenance solutions. You have technology providers in that ecosystem. And each of those parties needs to understand their role. The technology providers, I mean, I stood on this stage for a number of years representing Semtech, and said then what I believe now, which is technology providers are servants to the ecosystem. Their job is to ask the ecosystem what they should be building, build it, deliver it to them at a cost that works, and shut up, frankly, and just, that's it. I think the complexity in the ecosystem is still that folks don't necessarily understand their role. Everybody's trying to grab a bigger share of the market. Everybody's falling over themselves, and I think that has led us to where we are now. Is it going to change? I think so. I mean, I think one of the things that Vinka used to say, everybody argued with each other when no one was making any money. There was a number of years in IoT where there was lots of money being spent, not really that much in terms of revenue from large-scale deployments. As people started to make money, then more cooperation started to happen. And that cooperation has grown really significantly over the last few years, but needs to continue. And AI, let's not forget the lessons of the past. Let's not try and build AI solutions that are islands unto themselves. AI is an addition into this ecosystem. And as you said, I think everything that we do here is real-world telemetry that feeds into a back end that turns that data into something meaningful. Let's make sure that we build those integrations, those interactions with AI providers using the same kind of community-driven, interoperability-driven mindset that has started to drive adoption of IoT, I'd say, in the last 4 or 5 years.
So it is interesting to look back over the last number of years. And what you were talking there about, like we still don't understand the business solutions as much. Right? We should be looking at the market saying, oh, identify this pain point, I can therefore build this to solve that pain point. What's frustrated me more about anything over the last 10 years is we just argued about the tech. There was a period there for a couple of years in particular where you had the IoT wars, and it was LoRa, Sigfox, and NB-IoT guys all slagging each off online. Yep. And I'm like, you idiots, it's about values, quit focusing on this, do what's good for the customer. And it's held us back, I think. So I mean, is there anything like in particular, if you look back over the last 10 years, you're like, oh shit, I wish we didn't do that. Pardon my French for saying that, but there's hardly anybody here anyway, that's fine.
Customers don't care about technology. At the end of the day, they don't care about technology, they want it to work. And no technology, and I'll talk specifically about connectivity technologies like LoRaWAN, like Sigfox, MyIoT, NB-IoT, LTE-M, RedCap, there's a vast range. They are all good at different things. I mean, even with Sigfox and LoRa, which was probably the biggest fight, they're good at different things. And as a result, they should have been working together. Customers should be able to easily integrate solutions that involve more than one technology. The fact that and again, I think the VC money played an influence in this because everybody talked about 50 billion and everyone thought that they were going to seize the market and all this crap. That interoperability, if we had adopted that thinking earlier, we would have proceeded a lot further. No technology does everything. Same is true of cloud solutions. Same will be true of AI solutions. And customers, aside from anything else, they don't want to place a bet on a 50-person startup company that's come up with a new technology. No enterprise customer with any common sense at all is going to commit their business and jeopardize their business on a single bet. They want to bet on an ecosystem. So these technologies were always meant to work with each other. They're starting to. There are a number of companies who are building, what I'd call abstraction layers. Blues is a great example. And that is actually meeting the customer's need for I want to do this, and I want to do this, and I want to do this. You tell me what technology does each of those things, and I'll use it. But my focus is on the business problem I'm trying to solve. And the more that we talked about different technologies and went to talk to customers, mine's better, the more their eyes glazed over, the more they backed out and thought, we'll just wait until these guys have figured this out, and then maybe we'll take a chance.
Remember when you couldn't text people on other mobile networks?
Oh, yeah.
That's what this feels like some days.
Yes.
And I would say that the people that invent these kind of technologies, and I agree with everything you said, but the people that invent them are very smart, technical people. And I think for them it becomes a religious war, okay? And at some point it has to evolve into a balance with the business side or else it just dies. How many technologies have we all seen across our careers that are fantastic technologies, but it's the business side doesn't make any sense? And that's why I think you're seeing this market being very challenging for some companies that maybe raised a bunch of money in 2020, 2021, and now they're just not aligned with what's going on in AI closely enough because they think of themselves as, I make widgets. And then they're like, well, it's a great widget, why am I dying?
Yeah.
I think a lot of that infighting amongst everybody also created a bit of a problem over a period of time. And I remember the mobile operators, they really frustrated me because they bet big on NB-IoT, but had no idea what to do with it. And I remember I was doing the Telstra, the mobile operator in Australia. I was doing their sales kickoff, and they asked me if there's one thing we should do, what should we do, tomorrow? And I'm like, you should launch LoRa. Because what they were doing is they were going out to these utilities who were doing these massive tenders, and they wanted to use LoRa. And all they did was go in there and say, no, this is why you should use NB-IoT. If the customer wants to use LoRa, why aren't you just deploying LoRa? And it's really simple. I mean, Telstra has a very large systems integration arm. They could have easily deployed it, but instead they just lost out on those deals and they couldn't reply to the tenders because they wouldn't deploy it. And you're shooting yourself in the foot. If everybody had actually collaborated more at the beginning, I think we'd be a lot farther along instead of building our little silos and trying to battle on that one. So.
Absolutely.
But it remains a money question, in my opinion, because I can't talk about where the information comes from, but this is people dealing with operators who want, and these people are very close or inside the operator. It's actually, Afzal is a good example of that, who is here. And they talk internally about, I want to use this for IoT type of solutions, right? And the operator, the core network goes, no, we can make more money with that piece of bandwidth somewhere else, so you're not going to get it at the price that you need it. And then it kills the business case, whether it's NB-IoT or CATM or whatever. So I was flabbergasted. I was like, okay, so we gave the technology in the hands of operators who don't know how to monetize this correctly. And that's the reason why we have TTNs and Netmores and I don't know, all these guys doing smaller networks that kind of bring value, but not the cellular operator. So when you said maybe the cellular operator should do LoRa, no, I don't think that's going to fly either. Maybe the business model of this US company who put all the LoRa in these, what was it, helium? Maybe that business model, it failed, but that kind of made sense, right? I don't know for LoRa exactly the future. What I do know is that in 2035 there should be a radio chip, where a software-defined radio chip, where you just can install what you need, right? Yeah. That's the way out. I don't care where, you see it here now, cellular and wireless M-Bus on the Nordic stand. There's all these Sigfox and LoRa basically coexist on the Semtech chip. Yep. It's all happening. So in 10 years, there will be just a software-defined radio chip. And now, you're talking billions of chips, so the price could go down because the volume is there, and you just plug in the firmware, whatever they call it, into the chip what you need.
Yeah. You made a lot of semi guys really happy.
Okay, so we're down to the final couple of minutes. We've got basically a huge stadium here filled with startups, a lot of them filled with startups and developers. What advice would you have for them? What is the most important thing that's going to turn your business into a success and allow you to scale?
Figure out who your customer is, talk to them, ask them what they want, deliver it. I mean, don't be blinded by the possibilities of the technology. Don't be blinded by what you could do. Find a customer, define what their problem is, ask them how to solve it, deliver the solution, and it's as simple as that.
It's sort of like, I've never watched the Silicon Valley show on HBO. I didn't realize the compression joke, because I get a call a couple times a year, Alan, we've got this incredible compression technology, I really need you to take a look and help us. And I'm like, ugh. And again, it's a technology first perspective will kill you every time. The customer problem perspective will make you successful.
Yeah, any thoughts?
So, 2 recommendations. First of all, listen to people like us. The gray hairs.
You've got a lot of gray hairs. Yeah.
Exactly. And it helps. As I said plenty of times before, we do 5,000 designs per year. 500 of them are trackers. And all these trackers are different or the same. So please listen when we make remarks about your tracking device. Just buy a generic device, then read the book from Jeffrey Busgang called The Experimentation Machine, do a few iterations very fast, find the customer value, and once you found that, then you start building your hardware and your stuff around it, because people start at the wrong side, challenging the technology, and that's not what the problem is anymore.
Okay, well, we're nearly out of time. Any final thoughts?
It's huge business. You should take our comments as positive, not negative. I would remind everybody one of the earliest CDMA cellular patents was in 1945 from actress Hedy Lamarr. And the first cellular call didn't happen until 1979. We did not hit 50% market penetration on smartphones until about 15 years ago. So we're actually going faster than the cell phone market.
Oh, that makes us feel.
There you go.
I think we are making progress as an industry. We're collaborating more, we're learning from our past mistakes, so let's hope that we're not here in 10 years talking about why we've screwed it up for 20 instead of just for 10, and we're making the most of it now. So I want to thank my fellow gray hair brigade up here and, for spending your time and sharing your ideas and thoughts, and let's give them all a round of applause.
Thank you.
Great.
To the second.
Thank you.